guess it hasn't provided. Can be.
See, where are we gonna go?
So.
We go old school and look at records.
Yeah. Now what kind of stuff, when you go to a record store, what kind of thing do you normally go to?
I usually try to hit up the classical bins and the old jazz bins, and then 90% of the time I'll walk out with like an old Duran Duran album. I mean, I'm hopelessly in love with the 80s.
Sure. Yeah, has that had any influence on your music? Maybe people don't realize
Probably
maybe it has.
not. I mean, I listen to so much different stuff, and what I'm doing now is solo guitar. So it really does surprise people when, you know, I'll pull out some crazy old record. This guy, Robin Hitchcock, is very interesting. I like him.
That's very cool.
I'm kind of discovering all these. There's so much music in the world, and it would be very disappointing if anyone listened to only one kind.
Sure. What kind of music first inspired you when you were a kid, when you first got turned on to either popular music or rock music?
I'll never forget Billy Idol. I loved MTV when I was really little.
Can we do the line about Billy Idol? Because if you want to use that, the PH came on.
Missed it?
Yeah.
I gotta say, ooh.
Just something about anything about Billy Idol.
She competed with the
yeah. We'll probably another cool artist to pick out.
Yeah. Billy Idol's not even that cool. This is insane. There's so much here. I gotta find something really good.
Have you seen the new reunited Duran Duran?
I have the new record.
That's cool.
James. I really like this band. I don't have this album.
Now you're a Smiths fan too, right?
Oh my god, don't even get me started. Yeah, I'm a huge Smiths fan.
Did you ever get to see the Smiths when they were... You're too young.
I was 7 years old when they broke up.
Oh yeah, I saw them in '86.
Oh, how was it?
Great.
Morrissey's like a god out here.
Yeah, he's huge out here.
And he's pretty damn big everywhere, but I hear out here.
He's tan and gained a little weight.
Yeah, he's looking good. I wonder if he stopped the...
No, David Lindley, is that someone that...
David Lindley's a guy I've toured with.
Yeah.
He's utterly strange.
Really?
And wonderful in every way. He's a huge hero of mine. And I remember listening to this record with my dad, and there's a song and it just says, very, very greasy. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was talking about his hair.
Talk about being able to play with people like that. Like, when did that first start happening for you, and how incredible was it to play with some of these people that, are kind of legendary?
Can I just have a moment?
Oh.
Sorry. One of my first big opening act shows was opening for Marianne Faithfull, which this was before I had a record out or anything. This was just really an interesting thing I got to do, and it was 3 nights in New York City, and it was a very intense crowd. I mean, it was full of people who were absolutely there to see Miss Faithfull. And I got up there and I played my instrumental guitar, and people really, it was the first time I realized that people who don't listen to instrumental guitar might like what I do. Who aren't familiar with maybe some of the esoteric people that I grew up and they influenced me, they could still say, this is very interesting stuff. And now, on to the real rock.
Right. Well, where do you think that comes from? When people see you play, because I was like mesmerized when I watched you, and you have that ability to kind of like, I think, mesmerize audiences. When did you realize you kind of had that power? Like, wow, people are just amazed by what you can pull off with the guitar.
Honestly, it started in the subway because I had done some shows, but that was when I just got out in front of perfect strangers and really had no idea how they would react. And people were coming up to me and just saying all kind of crazy things. They would stop and a few people would actually wait, and the train would leave without them, and they'd actually be listening to me. And just, I never had any idea how much people would react to it. I think mainly because they've never really seen it before. I've never really even heard of that concept, maybe.
How much of that's because you're young, hip-looking, attractive, and some of these other guys have been around for a long time and they don't quite have the same feel?
I know that has a lot to do with it, and I'm totally milking it for what it's worth. At the same time, I think the solo guitar community, which sort of embraced me initially, doesn't really care about stuff like that. You know, I think that if I was a mediocre guitar player, but I did look cute and was young, it really wouldn't sell. So I think with the initial group who kind of came to support me very early on, they were really interested in what I was doing musically.
And all these other people that maybe are famous guitar players that probably couldn't do anywhere, you know, play anything other than a few chords and all the stuff they have. Is that sometimes odd for you?
Yeah, it does, but they always tend to look really cool. So if you have one or the other.
Right. Works either way.
These are all really crappy records. We should, I don't know, we should move somewhere else. Although, New Order, big time. I listen to a lot of this stuff. New Order and Joy Division.
New Pornography.
I like the New Pornography. Yeah. Do you know them?
Oh yeah.
This album, I sang along to this album.
Yeah.
Last summer, this is my soundtrack.
Oh yeah. That's a great one. His solo album, Macy Newman's solo album.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's so big in here. It's amazing.
No.
Into really weird records. And
Well, that's
Britney
cool. We do
Spears.
enough stories on
You're in the right place.
the other ones.
Where are we? Are we here? HIJKL. I love Avril Lavigne. Can I just say?
Yeah.
Stop beating on Avril, man. She's great. You know, it'd be really funny if they didn't have it, which it doesn't appear that they do. I wonder if I'm Kaki or if I'm King. I don't think we got any luck here. But that's not really surprising. You'll probably find me in the used bin for That's the first record.
First record.
I don't really see the second. But
Make sure it's stocked before we air.
I think I'm gonna put me and Carol King. So, those looking for some quality love songs, you know, maybe they'll take a chance.
Exactly. Put into words your guitar playing style. People that don't know, that maybe aren't, you know, acoustic guitar aficionados that already read the magazines. You got to put into words.
I really try to talk about it more in musical terms because when I talk about it in terms of technique, it sounds very clinical and kind of cold. I try to captivate people's attention for a long period of time, sometimes up to an hour and a half in the show with just guitar, with just one guitar. And so far, it seems to work very well. I play a lot of different styles and a lot of different types of songs. Some will be very slow and long, and some will be very fast. But I think that instrumental music is somewhat still relevant. Maybe not particularly in like the pop world as it is really mainstream today, but I think that music is essentially the language of an emotion, and it speaks to something different and more deep than mere words, maybe. And I think that that's what I try to find that, and I try to just tell stories without any words, and I try to get really sort of deep inside and make people feel things. And sometimes they can't even put words to their emotions themselves. But if I had to say anything about it, it would just be that music is a language of emotion, and I try to just get down to that root and find out what it's about through my guitar.
Very cool. And how unique is it to be able to transcend so many categories and be, you know, shelved in pop rock for someone that plays instrumental music, and for someone who does all that you just said? It's kind of unique that you can kind of, you know, break boundaries that way.
It is. It's wonderful, and all the music that I am in touch with, like pop or like I listened to nothing but classical music for 2 years in high school and college, and I listened to a lot of dance music for a while, a lot of techno, and I think being able to put all these influences in my guitar music, although a lot of people don't realize that they're there. But being able to collect fans who take my songs and make remixes out of them and then rap over them, to people who have studied at Juilliard and who are really like, wow, you're doing some really great dissonant chords. I mean, it makes me feel so wonderful to kind of be validated in each different little world. So it's really great, and I love music, and it's good to be able to make it. I really like this band. Here's James. They made an album that was so brilliant. And they probably don't have it here. No. This is a great album, but along with it, they made an album. It was nothing but improvisations.
Yeah.
It was 18 songs. They made it with Brian Eno. Brilliant.
Have you collaborated with anyone, or would you? Are there certain like artists that you like would be dying to record with? Or?
Absolutely. Having done 2 solo records, essentially, I'm kind of itching to expand my sound and broaden my horizons. I won't name names, but I definitely have some favorites out there in the world. But not that anything, I don't really want to do something that people have seen before. I mean, just like I am playing guitar music instrumentally, which is something that's kind of rare. I think if I were to collaborate, it would be the typical thing that people would maybe think about accompanying a guitar, like bass and drums, probably more along the lines of a cello and a marimba or something.
Talk about expanding, how you expanded on your first album with Lex Make Us Longer. You've kind of done some new things with this record.
The first record was actually, I did it all by myself. It was just demos that I'd put together with some friends, and a couple years. Second record, I had a major label behind me, I had a great producer, and so at the same time I didn't want to make an orchestrated record. I wanted to make a solo guitar record, but yet that had just some little surprises that would make it, would broaden dimension. And I had one of my favorite songs, 4 minutes into it, strings appear out of nowhere, and they just kind of come in and then they go out to the very end of the song. But you have to wait 4 minutes for that, so it's still just, you know, it's kind of, these little treats interest me, and little surprises. I like really long introductions that maybe last a couple minutes before you actually get to the meat of the song.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
There's actually some singing for people that listen long enough. You get to hear you sing a little bit on this record.
There is a little singing, which is another thing that it's tough because you're so identified as one thing, but you're really capable of doing all kinds of things, or you wish that you'd like to be. So you have to leave an open door no matter what you do. You can never say, oh, I'm only an instrumental guitar player, because honestly, before I did this for a living, I was playing drums in punk bands, you know?
Sure.
What else are you feeling with this whole?
Let's see, yeah.
I haven't really found a great record to talk about, and
no,
I know that's not what this is about, but I'm feeling kind of guilty.
Yeah. What's the most recent stuff that you've actually gone out and bought?
I do a lot of in-stores, so I go shopping.
Right.
And I got the new Elliott Smith album, I got the new Interpol album. Got some great Brazilian music by a woman named Virginia Rodriguez. I got Schubert's Death of the Maiden Quartet, which is one of the most phenomenal pieces of music ever written. I'm still firmly rooted in this kind of everywhere at once, or at least attempting to be everywhere at once in the music that I listen to.
Yeah, and how does that incorporate into your shows? Do you ever break out and do one of those kind of songs and switch it up, or?
Yeah, I actually am doing a piece on lap steel with the looping pedal, and it's nothing but kind of a house music song. I put like a drum beat on it that I do with the guitar. I do everything just with the one guitar, and it starts to sound like a piece of dance music, which is weird. And then I play a bit of something that I ripped off from a Debussy piece at the beginning of the song.
Yeah.
It's kind of I'm a really great rip-off artist in that no one knows what I'm ripping off because it's too obscure.
Right. And it works. How often are you touring? You're in the road?
I tour all the time.
Yeah.
I had 2 weeks off for the first time in a long while.
Yeah.
And it was strange.
Yeah. So you love being on that? I mean, that.
I really do, and I love coming to a city for the first time is a thrill, but then coming to it for the 10th time and you're like, oh yeah, I know where to eat, I know where to stay, I know 15 people that live here. That's that's when touring becomes really great because you feel at home everywhere.
Right. You were in Japan recently?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
My name means oyster in Japan.
Yeah.
Kaki means oyster. So when I say my name is Kaki in Japanese, I'm basically saying I'm an oyster. Pleased to meet you. So people get a lot of kick out of me in Japan, just for that reason alone. Sure. Japan is very cool.
Yeah.
It's not, I think a lot of people think of Asia as a place where you kind of ship everything American over and just see if it sticks. But Japan is really cool about what they like. They're not just gonna sort of swallow everything that the rest of the world is sort of in love with. They are very quirky and interesting about what they like to have coming into their musical or artistic brain.
Yeah. And the reaction there was great, I assume.
Yeah. And but it's crazy. I mean, Japan is half the size population-wise of the U.S. and they have like 10 times the number of guitar magazines alone. They're really into their guitars.
Yeah.
So they were excited about me.
Very cool. There's a whole guitar culture of people that don't know. It's a really big deal, right?
Yeah, it is a very big deal.
How much of that world, I know you've been kind of embraced by that in terms of like, you know, the magazine stuff and stuff like that, but how much of that do you get involved in? And I know you're very technical talk here, that's technical for our show, but how much do you enjoy?
It's interesting. I'm so lucky to have the support of people who I have always truly admired, people who I absolutely do not ever want to compare myself to because they're just too incredible. But it's been really a pleasure to see those people accept me the way like golfers accepted Tiger Woods or something, or maybe the way theirs is maybe a dying art and they didn't really see anyone new carrying that torch with just playing instrumental acoustic guitar. So I'm kind of their little darling.
Yeah. And I read somewhere you said you're kind of a little darling of NPR.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm kind of an NPR person.
Yeah.
I really get into, I will listen to radio documentaries. I'm into that kind of stuff. I'm a bit of a nerd, really. And so NPR is I feel perfectly at home.
Yeah.
Because I truly look forward to All Things Considered every day.
Right. Sure. Robert Siegel.
Yeah.
Those guys, yeah. All the celebrity you've already kind of attained, the success you've already achieved, is this beyond your wildest dreams already at this point? Did you ever imagine that it would?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you love music, but intentionally, I was playing drums in bands because I truly had a dream of being in a famous band, and I thought I would be a drummer. And so that was what I spent most of my energy on in like a community kind of effort. And guitar is just my thing. It was just my baby and it's what I did at night. But I figured because the music I'm listening to is so, you know, it's 20 years old already, and there really isn't anyone else doing what I'm doing. I didn't really think of it as a very strong career choice.
Right.
So from day one, even when I got my first show playing guitar, I was so incredibly thrilled, and everything after has just been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it has gotten me completely addicted to playing music as a living.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'll ever be able to give it up. But yeah, it's truly remarkable and amazing, and I feel incredibly blessed.
Were you always a confident performer from those subway days? Were you ever nervous, or was it something you always felt real comfortable with?
I really grew up performing, not necessarily solo. I was in band. I was in high school band. I started in 4th grade, so I've been used to being on stage for quite some time. So that never really affected me, and it doesn't. when I go to a show, I think, oh, I'm down here and they're up there. But when you're on stage, you don't feel like you're up there and they're down there. You just feel like you're playing music in front of a group of people. And fortunately, a lot of people that come to my shows are so sweet and giving and just happy to see music, and there aren't really too many haters.
Sure.
So it makes it like I get less afraid.
You played kind of a few really big crowds though, I know.
Oh yeah.
What's it like playing when you're doing your thing? How does it differ when you're playing for thousands or like Bonnaroo or something like that? How does it differ from doing a show like this tonight as far as what you're doing?
I tend to play with a lot more energy, I do the louder, kind of faster songs, because I know people when they're standing up, they want to get on their feet and feel physically energized. In front of a seated audience, I'm far more mellow, and I kind of take them into a deeper place musically. But they're both good. There's nothing greater than getting up in front of a huge crowd of screaming people and playing the loudest stuff you've ever played on your guitar. Yeah. And hurting yourself and then walking off stage. It's amazing, and I'm so glad I can do both, honestly. Because I know a lot of bands who, they just rock out. It's so hard that no one's really going to come down and, it's like a, how should I say this? I'm not really phrasing this. And there's a lot of bands that rock out really hard, but they don't have a side to them that's very quiet and melancholy or contemplative. And I sort of have both sides sometimes.
Cool. Is there anything else I wanted to ask?
It's like 6 days.
Yeah, I did write that. Sorry.
No, it's great.
Well, you know, I don't know.
No, now I can just.
There's a lot. Talk is very cheap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get a lot of.
No, I know.
Oh yeah, sure. You're gonna be on the cover of Spin. No problem.
Right.
Just give me a couple months, B.
Right.
And I'm like, no, I'm not. That's silly. Okay.
No, I used to learn years ago that we don't shoot stuff that you think you're gonna.
I really like Stravinsky.
Yeah?
Yeah. He was the first guy that scared me. Really scared me.
Yeah, in what
through
sense?
His music. It just made me afraid.
Really?
You know, it's that powerful.
Yeah.
But then you get over the fear, and then you're really into it.
Are you in the kind of household where you're listening to this as a kid and your parents into this kind of stuff? Or how did you get turned on to this kind of music at a young age?
Actually, my first great classical love was Tchaikovsky, and I ended up playing a piece of his in a school band called March Slav, and I became a fan, and I got every CD he'd ever done. My father, of course, who's a music lover, had tons of records that he didn't even realize he had. And but I feel like Tchaikovsky's sort of the original pop composer because he had these incredibly catchy melodies that you just repeat in your head over and over. So much for quiet.
This used to be the classic.
So Stravinsky, he just took music and totally turned it on his head. Although people who had come before, it's all kind of like a lineage thing. But I really, truly do. I'm a true fan of these people. I feel like I'm gonna write them letters and they're gonna sign pictures for me, but unfortunately they can't.
Right.
Are you
upset at the way people look at this kind of music now these days, other than real people that really play music? Or?
No, I think there's a lot of. I don't judge people and what they like and what they're into. I don't think that. As much as I do love a lot of classical music, I'm not a snob. But I think that unfortunately, I think that it's somewhere in the 50s, classical music just got so strange and so avant-garde that a lot of people just didn't want to do it anymore. And so I don't really know that there's been a continuum from, Bach to now. I think that it maybe had stopped somewhere in the middle of the last century. So I'm not quite sure, I know that when I look in the New York Times or something and I say, oh, I want to go to Carnegie Hall to see the St. Louis Orchestra, and oh, they're playing, of course, Dvorak's Fifth. Why not? Because that's only 70 years old, or I actually don't know how old that is, but you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. But I do know that there are lots and lots of interesting, young, very edgy composers who are doing stuff that is both truly innovative, but also accessible. And I'm not sure how. It's like poets used to be famous. Women would swoon. They would give readings in front of thousands. And now can imagine a famous poet these days. It just happens culturally. I ramble. It's my style.
Is it ever a conscious effort to make your music accessible when you're composing something and you're thinking, oh God, this is getting a little too avant-garde? Or do you not sense yourself that way at all?
Certainly not with what I'm doing now. It doesn't really get too out there. And I would never. I might not put the strange songs on the records, but it doesn't mean I don't write them. But I think that because, in addition to this world, I also live in, 80s week world, and I also live in other places musically inspire me. And I think to that end, I try to write. I do write a lot of songs that are 3.5 minutes long and have a sort of verse, chorus, bridge type of pop feel, and they're instrumental and they're played in a very strange way, but they still, to me, reek of that sensibility of a perfect pop song.
Well, where do you see that going? Do you imagine a day where even some more boundaries can be broken and it could give you more?
I think that the direction I'd like to go in most, because no one can really say exactly what they're going to be inspired by, what they're going to do. I think the direction I want to go in most is becoming more of a composer for the guitar and other instruments than just a guitarist. Because right now people are really excited about how I play the guitar, but I think that the music I write in the long term is going to be more important.
But just describe the place you get into when you're actually playing something and you're performing. Where is your head at that point? Is it something you can put into words at all?
I think so. The only thing I can really say about it, and I think this might have had to do, I think this has something to do with why I played music all my life, is that I have one of those heads that's sort of always going in some odd direction, and I'm always thinking about something strange, or I'm always thinking about something. But when I play music, I'm genuinely not thinking about anything. And it doesn't mean I'm unconscious or not feeling what I'm playing, but my mind just sort of slows down for a minute, and I'm able to see clearly. So music's the only thing that's been able to get my mind into that headspace thus far, and I think it's why I like doing it.
Do you have days when you don't touch the guitar at all?
Yeah, but I'll touch my accordion or my drum set. Or, there are very few days that I listen to live music. There aren't really many days that I don't play at all. It feels strange for me to not pick up a guitar.
Yeah. How many guitars do you own?
I have a lot.
Yeah.
But I bought very few.
Really?
Yeah. Right now I have like 12 or 13. I gotta calm down on the guitar owning thing. But there's a guitar that I haven't been playing it, and I'm gonna sell it because no guitar deserves to not be touched and loved. Truly.
You carry these around with you, or are these all locked away?
Oh, no. Yeah. I play on the road with 2 guitars, and I play with a lap steel. They're all in my apartment in Brooklyn waiting to get broken into and stolen anyway, so. No, that's cynical of me. No, they're in New York. Yeah.
I think we're good.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
No,
You're very
thank you
good.
so much.
I mean, being able to talk